whether it's a company that has $1 billion or a small numbered company owned by a wealthier individual that has $10 million, what's the difference?
Right.
What's the difference? All right, don't worry about it, because here we go. Episode 137 of KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. I'm Ariel. He's Adrian. Today,
I like the energy, the enthusiasm.
Developer. It's hot topic in real estate news. A condo developer has decided to invest $1 billion in buying single-family residences across the country and using them as rental properties.
It says actually in Ontario.
Is it in Ontario?
It does say it in Ontario. Toronto developer buying hundreds of detached houses. So whether or not that's accurate, but specifically says detached houses in Ontario with plans of renting them and profiting off the housing crisis ripping across the country.
Right.
So
if the $1 billion is going to be spent in Ontario, that's fine. Across the country, whatever. It's $1 billion.
Yes.
Well, that's a lot of money.
So they're I'm just reading the article. It's an unproven business model in Canada. So they're testing out the waters.
Okay, yeah. In terms of that stature, $1 billion. So this
I wonder if they need a management company.
This massive development group previously were just building condos, like high-rise condo buildings, and now have decided to take a sizable portion of their holdings and invest it in single-family residences. And what they are actually doing, it's quite interesting because I dug into it a little bit because it's been all over the news over the last couple of weeks, and they're doing things like renovating and finishing the basements to create rentable spaces, not necessarily multi-residential like a duplex or anything, but
accessory apartments. And in many municipalities, it must be. You can't do that with townhouses. Like in Milton, as an example,
correct.
It has to be detached or a link home where no shared living spaces are connected, which is interesting because
every municipality is different, though.
Yes, absolutely. But that's interesting too. Just on an aside, you see a lot of townhouses with basement rentals publicly listed on Realtor.ca. Those aren't permitted.
Yes. Yeah, well, a lot of rentals in the province and probably in the country are not permitted.
Yes, correct. I wonder if the town actually monitors listings to see who's got an illegal basement apartment. I remember at some point in Hamilton, they were cracking down on it.
Yeah.
If not still.
So the topic really spurred a whole lot of interest in
outrage,
the online world, mostly from there's a lot of comments, right? Like consumers and individuals just commenting on some of the articles. This one was published in the Globe and Mail that we were referring to, but that picked up across quite a few different mediums. People feel like they're disgusted by the fact that this massive group is going to take $1 billion and just buy up a ton of property and then rent them out. And part of the reasoning is because the shortage of supply. Like, we're still in a seller's market. Seller's market is when the inventory of homes is lower than the demand. And, we're still seeing homes sell very quickly and not being replenished back on the market. So it's still a seller's market. And now these people with big, deep pockets are coming along and buying homes in multiple offer situations, and they've got the cash, right? Like, to get to put an extra $30, $40, $50,000 on a $500,000, $600,000 home for them still might be a reasonable investment, whereas a average income family trying to purchase that home and in the same multiple offer on the property, they can't do that. So the homes are being snatched out of the hands, so to speak.
Well, that's what they think will happen. I mean, I can't imagine that they're going to go ridiculously high.
The numbers really still have to line up for them for it to make sense.
Yes.
But here's the thing. Whether it's a company that has $1 billion or a small numbered company owned by a wealthier individual that has $10 million, what's the difference?
Right.
What's the difference? Quite honestly, I'd rather the landlord have more properties because they probably have more infrastructure, and you probably have more contacts and things like that in case of a problem. If they're doing renovations and making an accessory apartment, they're more likely to have the proper, the proper finishes to pass whatever bylaws and inspections are required for those living or those dwellings. So I don't know. It to me, well, there's lots of debate actually with it, because people are saying, there's already fuel on the fire in this housing market, and now they're adding to it, right? Like how it's going to help drive prices up even more. Well, and then some people are like, well, the market's already overheated. Why, whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's
interesting because you get some people who say, oh, the market's, you're talking about the whole bubble bursting and all of that, and people who are holding off and waiting. And we had that conversation in one of our last podcasts. And, this is just, it goes to support our thoughts on the market not being overinflated and not being in the midst of bursting. If you've got a corporation that's comfortable investing $1 billion in single family detached homes in the province, one would think they did a lot of work analyzing the market conditions to ensure that was a worthwhile investment. Right. So it just goes to show that
well, here's what's interesting. They've started buying properties in Kingston, which I have said for a little while now that it's piqued my interest. Kingston and Ottawa. So they're buying properties in Kingston, St. Catharines, London, Barrie, Hamilton, Peterborough, and Cambridge, and will soon start buying in Guelph. So these are a lot of the areas that we said are and it's basically, if you look at the GTA and take these areas, it's everything just outside of the GTA.
Yeah. I wonder what their average buy price. They're detached probably in those areas, maybe around 700, something like that.
Yeah, maybe even a bit less, but I think the average, let's see, they mentioned some figures.
So an interesting thing there, because, the one market that is not being served satisfactorily, like we don't have enough rentals, right? So this will add potentially, based on $700,000 average purchase price, if they're spending $1 billion, they're going to be in the range of about 1,400 homes, hypothetically. And let's say half of those they convert to have an accessory apartment. They get another 700. So you're 2,100 new units to rent in the province. Those are big numbers. That's a big influx of rental properties.
So here's first of all, there are big companies, big groups that have done this in the United States for many, many, many years. Many years. It's an investment for them. It's a relatively stable investment because even if the home prices fluctuate, the rental market is still there, especially like if you look at Ontario, I think it's a brilliant decision for them.
Well, they're not doing it to flip it in a year. They're sitting on this for potentially decades. They're a big organization. They're thinking long term.
And they, quite honestly, they are now going to provide affordable housing.
Yeah.
Which there isn't enough of. There are going to be more people needing rental properties. We've talked about it, whether it's they can't afford the down payment, whether it's that's their preference. Maybe they're relocating and don't want to buy yet. Maybe they're new immigrants, don't have credit yet. There's so many variables, and there's not enough supply on the rental market to provide housing for all these people.
Yeah.
And that's why we've seen the rental market get into multiple offers. And the condo I had on the market the other week, multiple offers and a seemingly perfect tenant within a day and a half, gone.
Yeah.
Over asking.
Yeah.
On a rental. So, I think from their standpoint, it's a brilliant decision. I don't think anybody should be upset at it. I think it happens anyways, just on a smaller scale. Like you've got all these smaller numbered
individual investors. You're competing against people that are buying it for that purpose all the time. It's just one additional person doing it.
And you've got people getting together with friends or colleagues or whatever and buying properties.
Yeah.
So it just happens on a different scale. And this has happened, like I said, in the United States for many, many years throughout many of the states, the larger states. And we haven't seen it at this scale in the province of Ontario. And that's why I think
think of the economic, the positive effect it'll have on the economy. Because if they're buying that many properties, now they're employing, or maybe they have their own property management company, if not multiple, because that's a lot of properties. They are going to be providing a ton of work to contractors to get these properties ready and maintained. If there are so many
supplies, all the supplies required for all of that.
Yes.
All of the lawyers, the accountants, the realtors, cleaning companies, whatever.
Yeah. Now, if I think one of the concerns people have is that they can't compete against a big company like this, which I don't believe is the case, because, and it sounds like you agree, they're not going to way overspend on properties. But one thing to help with that, if people are really genuinely concerned about that, first of all, odds are you're not competing against them. But if you are, chances are their offers coming in under a numbered company. Okay. So if you're buying a single family home from somebody that has it as their family home, and they have your offer and they have another offer under a corporate name, one thing you can do, hopefully to pull on the owner's heartstrings, is to send a nice family photo, write a nice story, even send a family video. Because if there's any sentimental value associated with the sale of that home, they may be more inclined to sell it to the nice family opposed to the big corporate entity.
Yeah. Well, then flip side of that, there's some people that just don't care and just want the almighty dollar.
Well,
right?
Obviously, but I'm saying it doesn't hurt. It could persuade them to go one way or the other, and we've had success with that.
Just to interject here, episode 137 of KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. We are talking about recent news of a group spending $1 billion. A big, they're a group that typically was
condo developers.
Yeah, they were typically developing new condos, and now they've decided to shift $1 billion of their assets to purchase single detached homes, single family homes in the province of Ontario.
That in itself is interesting, because you've got a condo developer investing in single family.
Yeah, maybe the condo market is a bit saturated. Lots of condos going around. Do you know who in terms of companies, who is the richest real estate holding company in the world?
The richest real estate holding company.
Well, a large company that holds the most valuable real estate in the world.
No, I understand what you're asking. I thought you were going to say developer. So that's why you threw me off. So I was just confirming what you were asking. The answer is no. I have no idea. I would think,
McDonald's.
oh, McDonald's. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that makes sense.
McDonald's.
In terms of value, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
McDonald's, like if you have a McDonald's franchise,
have you watched the movie? I can't remember what it's called.
The Founder, a long time ago.
Yeah.
If actually I started rewatching it not too long ago, but I fell asleep. If you own a McDonald's franchise, you are leasing the property. And who owns the property? McDonald's.
That's right.
And they own every piece of land and every building in all of their restaurants.
I can't imagine that's the case because they don't own all of them because most certainly they don't own all of them because they're in Walmarts and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so most of the freestanding, right, they must own.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the business they're in, not the burger business.
Right. Yep, exactly. Can you imagine? I think actually that was a comment either in the movie or a separate documentary or whatever, but that business evolved from making 15-cent cheeseburgers and having to do it a specific way. And so like that, I love that movie. Actually, I'm going to watch it in whole. I think I think there was a line in
it,
like from a business standpoint, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, if you pay attention to the evolution of that company, but they went from trying to profit on selling food and then realized that's not really where the money is long term.
Yeah.
And that's how they ended up with so much real estate holding. So anyways, I don't think anybody should be upset at this. Good for them. I mean, it's no different than smaller and money investors going and buying up some property. It might help a lot of properties, like not dilapidated, but properties that are in need of TLC. Like I could see companies like this coming in, and there's lots of people buying quote unquote flips and whatever, but these guys are coming in, they're going to fix it up a little bit, create an accessory apartment, rent out both spaces. So
and that would be the ideal property for them to buy because they're going to be feeding so much business to these contractors. They're going to be getting, I would think they're going to be getting a great rate. So the return on the purchase would be really good.
And I think, it says a lot about the real estate market. So when people talk about, is the market going to crash and whatever, like we talked about 2 podcasts ago, I think the fact that a big group like this going in and investing $1 billion in the Ontario real estate market says, hey, there's opportunity here, right? So that's all I want to talk about today because a lot of people have been mentioning it. It's a hot topic on social. If you have any questions about how a company might do this or how you might get involved with doing similar things, like if you want to buy a property and create a rental property from it or multiple rentals within that property, we know how to do that. We do it on a regular basis. We're happy to chat with you about that. And that's it for today, episode 137 of KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. Thanks for listening. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe.
And leave a comment.